Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and a beautiful afternoon it is here at Sunken Diamond as we get ready for a little bit of midweek action baseball between two NorCal opponents. The Sacramento State Hornets in town up against the ninth-ranked Stanford Cardinal. Alongside Jenna Becerra, I am Jordan Watkins, and Jenna, obviously for Stanford, they're coming off that series against Oregon on the road. Oregon takes 2 of 3 there, but Stanford did end up on a good note with that 6-4 win.
And that's what they're trying to do, is really build on that momentum from that last game on Sunday where it was better baseball. The goal is to do that here today in the midweek game and take that momentum in as they continue Pac-12 play.
And of course, on the other side for Sacramento State, they also dropped 2 of 3 as well in their last weekend matchup going up against UT Arlington. A lot of runs were scored, to say the least, in that series. Sacramento State lost the first game 9-7, then came back to win 8-3 and lost 12-10 back on the 16th. And this is a series that starts off the longest road trip for the Hornets in the last 3 years, where they'll have their next 9 games on the road. And of course, they start here, the number 9 team in the country.
Casual, yeah, just a casual thing to start that off with a top 10 team like Stanford.
Oh, we've set the table for you just a little bit, so now let's tell you about the lineup, at least for Sacramento State, that is. Leading off at third base, it'll be Jorge Bajorquez. Vehiva Aloy will be batting second. Martin Vincelli Samard bats third. In cleanup, you have J.P. Smith. Jeffrey Hurd bats fifth. Cesar Valero bats sixth. Carson Blatnick will be batting seventh. In the eighth spot, it is Josh Rowling and Jacob Cortez will round things out, and they will be going up against a little bit of a Mr. Do-It-All, if you will, for Stanford, Braden Montgomery. You know him usually as the right fielder for the Cardinal, the sophomore, also a strong arm on the mound as well, making appearance number 6, start number 2 on the year, a 1-1 record, a 5 ERA. He's gone 9 innings of work so far, giving up 9 hits, 6 runs, 5 of those have been earned, 13 strikeouts with 5 walks, and opponents batting .250 against him.
Yeah, I think the thing that he'll want to focus on is reducing the freebies. So 5 walks, want to reduce that a little bit, not give away the freebies, let your defense work. But yes, you said it, Jordan, one of the best two-way players on the watch list for two-way player of the year. He's a fun one to watch, and I'm excited to see him on this fine Tuesday.
Now, on that John Olerud watch list, as Jenna mentioned, and again, you probably have seen, if you're tuning in, maybe that highlight if you weren't watching the game last year in the Pac-12 tournament where he put a throw on the money from right field into home plate. So you already know he has a strong arm coming in. And, yeah, by the way, he'll probably put up about 95, 96 as well on the radar gun on the mound. Well, here we are, Bajorquez looking at the first pitch in for strike 1, so says Bradley Hungerford behind the plate. Greg Charles is over at first, Christopher Gonzalez at second, and over at third base is Justin Havey. Second pitch line the other way and down for a base hit. So for Bajorquez and Sac State, that's exactly how you want to start things off.
It's good aggressiveness, right? Like you want to start off with a good tone, to your point, Jordan. So just to go with that pitch, you see something over the wide of the plate, just go for it. And it was nicely done, hitting it the other way.
Of course, again, I'm sure for Sacramento State, we talked about the speed and the velocity that Montgomery can throw with. So, of course, you're expecting a much shorter approach at the plate for Sacramento State, and that's exactly how you do it, right? First batter, line drive the other way.
Yeah, let that velocity work for you. You know, shorten up, be compact. Exactly what he did.
0-1. It's going to be a 6-4, and the throw is going to take Carter Graham off the bag from Drew Bowser. Well, it looked like Stanford was going to get the double play there, but again, they only get the one at second. Still one on, but now one down.
Obviously helpful to get that lead runner, keep him out of scoring position, but man, do you want two there if you're Braden Montgomery.
So you always say pitcher's best friend, right? Those double plays. Well, one down now. We are to the third spot of the lineup. Martin Vincelli Samar takes the first pitch high and tight for ball one. And if you're looking for someone who loves to do damage during midweek games, look no further than the person at the plate right now. 9 of 18 at the plate, including 2 home runs. He's driven 8 in as well during midweek games for the Hornets. He fouls that one back. Count even 1-1.
He was someone who was missing for a couple weeks too due to injury, and now that he's returned, he's done it with a bang, just multiple hits, multiple multi-game hits against UT Arlington. So this is someone that is going to give them that momentum moving forward.
So that is high. 2-1. That pitch was almost in the same location. Well, here's one of the things you talked about, Jenna, not even just for the walks itself, but whenever you think of walks, you think of a lot of balls. And one thing that happens there, obviously you put yourself behind the count if you're a pitcher.
Well, and because of that, that can lead to you giving up more hits as well.
Exactly. That is a ball. It was low, so even though the runner went, Aloy over at first, it doesn't matter. As a 5-pitch walk is issued to Vincelli Samar.
It was a nice throw by Moore, though.
Yes, it was. One thing you always want to make sure you highlight as a catcher, right?
Yeah.
Like, even though it technically doesn't count,
Just
still.
let them know. Let them know.
Right, right. Let the other team in the dugout know this is what you have to deal with. First and second now with 1 down. J.P. Smith now at the plate. First pitch swinging and fouls it off the other way. So far, J.P. this year. And 318 in his freshman campaign. 7 home runs. 24 driven in. Of course, this is one of these matchups that you don't really get to say this often for Stanford. At least coming in, Sacramento State has more home runs than the Cardinal have, as that will be fielded by Bowser, and Montgomery will cover. Runners get over, a productive out for Smith. 2 down now.
And that is a routine play, and it looks routine, but that takes communication because of where everyone was positioned in that situation. You have to come over and make that coverage at first base, time it up right with the toss. Like, there are little things that could go wrong, so it was just executed well.
Second and third now for the Hornets. 2 down, Jeffrey Hurd comes to the plate. First pitch, a big swing and a miss. By the sophomore from nearby San Jose, went to Valley Christian High School. For Sacramento, not too far from here, but still, I'm sure, for Hurd and a couple of other players as well for Sacramento State. You come back to the Bay Area, you want to make a big impression. Fairly solid contingency of Hornet fans are here, especially for a midweek game.
Yeah, you wonder if the tensions between the Warriors fans and the
There-
Kings
there
fans
you go.
are bleeding over a little bit right now.
It's only fitting we have this matchup this week, right? 1-1 is crushed deep to right. Campbell's going back at the wall, and it's going to bounce off the base of the wall. Both runs will come around to score. And it is a 2 RBI double for Jeffrey Hurd, and the Hornets take the lead here in the top of the first.
And he turned on that really nicely. Just good barrel angle for that inside pitch, getting the hands in, taking it for a ride. I thought that might have had a chance to go out for a second there, but did hit the wall with some power behind it.
Of course, the sun's still out, at least to start off this game. Usually that's when the ball likes to fly here. And like you said, Jenny, put a good charge on it, especially once we saw that first swing that he took. You were thinking if you can make contact with it, it was going to go a long way. It still did, right down by the 375 sign.
It's letting the velocity work for you once again, too.
Is that something that's easier said than done for hitters?
It can be, because it's easy to get anxious. Hitting is definitely a relaxed skill. It's something where you have to be relaxed and then explode and let yourself kind of go from there versus like trying to start tensed up already. You have to stay relaxed to be able to do that. And sometimes that's tough. Sometimes you really, really want it. And it's easy to get a little ahead of yourself.
Well, right now, Cesar Valero ahead in the count after that swing and miss. It's still 2-1. And you have a couple of things that are at play here. If you're a hitter for the Hornets, again, you talk about the velocity, but also the added patience as well, as there are times where, and Brady Montgomery's still working on that control, so you have both of those things in mind that you need to work on.
And that's pitch selection. So far, the Hornets are doing a nice job of that. They're not chasing too much, but then when Montgomery's forced to come a little bit more on the plate, they're attacking those pitches.
2-2. Strike three called. Braden Montgomery gets Valero looking. So in the top of the first, though, Sacramento State still gets two across off two hits. They did leave one stranded. We'll keep it here so we can introduce you to the lineup for the Stanford Cardinal. Starting things off at the top of the order is Eddie Park. Carter Graham is right behind him, followed by Tommy Troy, who has been having a phenomenal season at the plate. Brady Montgomery, you just saw him on the mound. He'll be batting cleanup. Malcolm Moore bats fifth. Drew Bowser sixth. Alberto Rios bats seventh. Saborn Campbell bats eighth. Owen Cobb will round things out. Of course, no designated hitter for Stanford since Brady Montgomery's pitching. They will be going up against the freshman Jackson Bird, who is making his first ever collegiate start, second appearance overall as the freshman. He's only gone one inning of work so far, gave up one hit with one walk and one strikeout.
It's a little bit of everything. A hit, a strikeout, a walk. Like, he's been introduced so far, and now with his first start, he's ready to go.
No, that's exactly it. And, again, it's kind of like what we talked about, right? You start off this road trip for Sacramento State. Well, congrats. Here's your first start against the number 9 team in the country that's been hitting at a 300 clip this year.
Well, and youth is something that Sacramento State is steering into a little bit. I mean, in terms of the hitting lineup, there's 3 freshmen, and then you add Bird into the mix, and that's 4 out of the starting 10 today. So not afraid to use their young talent.
Then, of course, you have a sophomore in there as well, and he's the one that has the big hit of the game so far, talking about Jeffrey Hurd.
Yep.
But, yeah, again, going back to Bird, was an all-Metro smaller school player of the year by the Sacramento Bee as a senior. That one appearance was back against UC Davis on the 11th. That was a game in which Sacramento State lost 4-3 in 11 innings. That was back-to-back extra inning losses for the Hornets. One was against Pacific and then the other against the Aggies from UC Davis. Well, here's Eddie Park to start things off. Looks at the first pitch in for strike one. Eddie Park batting .320 on the year. Again, this is a Stanford team that coming in is third in the Pac-12 in terms of overall batting average. And pretty much for the most part, if you want to look at some of those offensive categories, Stanford will be right there in terms of that top third, if you will, on the Pac-12. 1-2 count now to Park.
Well, with that said, just because you have the 2-run cushion from the top of the first, Sac State knows that they have to really try to control this offense because they can explode for multiple runs. Not ideal for Stanford to give up that 2 spot right away, but it is something where you got to score to win anyway, and they do have the capability to put some hits together.
The number 1 team in the Pac-12 in terms of runs scored this year, 269 of them to be exact. A big part of that is because of table setters like Eddie Park, who has now worked to count full. Payoff, hit the other way, and it's going to get by for a base hit past the diving Aloy.
That's an ideal leadoff at bat. Really, that's exactly what Stanford's looking for in this situation, because you want to be able to take enough pitches that you can see and your teammates can see. Get the timing down, see what they're throwing out there on the mound, and then you end it by getting a base hit and getting on base. That's really ideal.
I think that second part of that too, Jen, is something that goes so unnoticed sometimes, where, like I said, it's not even just for you. I know a lot of times you talk about the more pitches you see, the more a pitcher can make a mistake, but also at the same time, especially if you're starting off a game, allowing the rest of your lineup to see a pitcher and see them throw more pitches, it's a big part of it too.
And I'm never somebody to say, okay, take a pitch if it's right down the pipe, just so that your teammates
Of
can see more pitches. But, you can be a little bit selective. You can take that approach. It is different. That's when it's sort of the game within the game that comes into play. Situationally, it matters.
There's Carter Graham, 2-0 count. The big cut fouled it off. That's earlier in the year. There was at one point Carter Graham was hitting about 067. And of course, if you paid attention to the year that he had last year when he hit 331, you knew that wasn't going to last long. 5 home runs for him on the year, 22 a year ago, which led the way in the Pac-12. And now ahead with a 3-1 count.
He's one of the 6 that was named to a preseason All-American list for the Stanford team. And that's all fine and great, right, to have those accolades, but it's really the why. Why are they recognized in that way? And it has to do with what you just said, which is that focus.
Chopper to third. They go to second for 1 on the way to first in time. Double play. So what Stanford wasn't able to accomplish in the top of the first, Sacramento State goes around the horn to get to a good start on that double play by Jorge Bajorquez.
Yeah, Bajorquez just like, well, yeah, if he's focused, then I'm going to focus even more and get 2 here.
Tommy Troy now at the plate for Stanford. Coming in batting .391 this year. Vahiva Aloy is at short. J.P. Smith at first. As that one's well hit over to left. Going back on it and looking up and looking out of the yard is Hurd as that ball is out of here. Tommy Troy continues to have a phenomenal season at the plate as he takes that ball out the yard. Home run number 5 for him, and Stanford cuts the lead in half.
You can see the breeze going out just a little bit to left field, but really off the bat, that one you could tell had some power behind it. And you could see Hurd in left field really going back, and then all of a sudden you slow down because you know it's going over the fence.
It's one of those walks where you kind of owe it to your pitcher in a way, right? You don't want to make them feel bad for how hard that ball was hit. As there's a nice scoop over at first by Smith for out number 3, but a long home run by Tommy Troy gets Stanford on the board. We are done with 1. Sac State up 2-1. 3 runs already on the board through 1 inning, 2 for Sacramento State, 1 for Stanford. We're going to the top of the second now. And leading off things will be the catcher, Carson Blatnick. Going to finish things up defensively for you as well for Stanford. So at first you have Carter Graham. Second, Drew Bowser over at third. Tommy Troy. Owen Cobbs over at short. Then from left to right, you have Alberto Rios, Eddie Park, and Sayborn Campbell. First pitch of the inning from Montgomery, a little low and inside. To the Hornets catcher, batting .220 on the year. He's driven 7 in so far. That one in on the hands and finds a way to muscle it the other way. Another single for the Hornets. That's the second leadoff single they've had in as many innings. Leadoff hitter on once again, nobody out.
He did inside out that pitch, so that's tough because if you're Montgomery, that means it wasn't a bad location, right? It means it was a little bit in on the hands, but that's why it helps to be on plane like that so you give yourself a chance offensively. Even if it's not, ripping the cover off the ball, you still give yourself that chance to get out of the infield and get on base.
Of course, at the end of the day, when you look at the box score, it looks like a line drive, right?
Yep.
And Josh Rowling at the plate. He might be number 1 on your roster or media cards, whatever you are watching the stream with, but he's in here as number 6. A junior from Reno. That is roped down the line. That's fair. It's going to be trouble. Off the wall, going over to third is Blatnick. He'll stay there. A line drive double for Josh Rowling. And once again, here in the second inning, Sacramento State is in business.
Turned on that pitch nicely, took advantage of the fact that Rios and left was shaded a little bit towards center field, so a little bit over there, and had to cover a ton of ground to get there closer to the line, but now 2 runners in scoring position.
Already the 4th at-bat coming up for Sacramento State with a runner in scoring position. As it'll be Jacob Cortez. And always a good feeling whenever you can go to your 9-hole hitter in the lineup and you look up and they're hitting .345. It's just a 56th at bat on the year for Cortez, but still 19 of 55. You'll absolutely take that.
Not bad at all. They have 4 people coming into this game hitting over 300.
And at the knees for strike 1, the count's even.
You see that in the typical spots like 2, 3, and 4 with Aloy, Vincelli, Samar, Smith. But then, yes, to have that weapon at the bottom of the order as well to try to turn over that lineup is helpful.
Nice off-speed pitch at Cortez in front. And he's a hitter. We talk about that average. Usually when he does get hits in games, they come in multiples. In 4 of his last 5 games, he's had multiple hits, and also you want to go even a little further. 7 of the last 8 as well. He's had multiple hit games, and right now in a 2-2 count with runners on second and third.
I don't mind Montgomery trying to get him to chase right there with that 1-2 count. 15 strikeouts on the year compared to just 2 walks, so potential to get Cortez to possibly chase something when you're ahead in the count.
Hit the other way, foul. And with the velocity of Montgomery, that's one thing you'll see a lot. A lot of pitches being hit the other way. Of course, to Jenna's point, that's why the outfield shades the way they do. You expect that teams are going to be a little bit behind the fastball of Braden Montgomery. High for ball 3. Good job getting out of the catcher stance by Malcolm Moore to make sure that didn't get to the backstop.
We talk about that all the time here, too, at Klein Field. At Sunken Diamond, it's a large area behind home plate, so anything that gets past, it's really tough to get a runner if they're coming from third base.
Yeah, if it gets behind your catcher here at Sunken Diamond, you're already going to get 90 feet. There's a chance you might get 2 bags.
It's happened.
Yes, it definitely has a couple of times. We'll go back to the top of the lineup already for the Hornets after this batter. That's line to center coming in. Eddie Park will make the grab. Blatnick went back to tag with a good strong throw into the cutoff by Eddie Park. Will keep him at third base. Well done defensively by Stanford, and there's out number 1.
It's an important out, too. You definitely want to get somebody out before you get back to the top of the order with runners in scoring position.
And of course, if you're Stanford, that's one thing that they have hung their hat on so many years here at Sunken Diamond, whether it's behind David Esker or Mark Marquis, who was here before. Strong pitching and great defense. First pitch to Bajorquez is fouled off. First time up, it was a single, and then Bajorquez was out in the fielder's choice, and right now in an 0-2 hole. Once again, the outfield shaded the other way. It's high and outside for ball 1.
And there's a lot of ground to cover here in the green. 400 to dead center, 335 down the lines.
Hit the other way foul. Yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of ground to cover, and even for Stanford, I mean, you look at in center field, Eddie Park has the most experience in terms of playing this outfield for Stanford. Alberto Rios is also a junior as well, but when you have players in that outfield like the name of, I don't know, Brock Jones and players of that caliber, you got to wait your turn to an extent. And then, of course, Saborn Campbell is a sophomore but didn't really play last year as well. So when you look at it for the most part, and outside of this year's experience, of course, a relatively inexperienced outfield for Stanford. 2-2. Low and away, and Bajorquez has worked it full.
And for Rios specifically in left field as well, I mean, he's listed as a catcher on the roster, for example, and he has had time back there behind the dish, but it is getting used to it. It's a very different position to be playing, to be out there in the grass.
Here's the payoff. Fastball misses low. And Montgomery loses Bajorquez, and the bases are loaded. Oh, one way to look at it if you're Braden Montgomery. Now you have a force out at any base. As Vahiva Aloy comes to the plate, the freshman from Hawaii, already third in terms of the program record for single-season home runs as a freshman. He has 9 of them. Of course, this is only including the time that Sacramento State's been a D1 program. And Justin Lamb is first with 11, and then there's a player that if you're an MLB fan, you might have heard of him, Reese Hoskins for the Phillies, who, of course, unfortunately was hurt earlier this year. Line drive, that goes off the glove of Graham over at first base. 1 run is going to score. Stopping at third is Rolling. And an absolute shot off the bat from Aloy will put that run back up on the board for Sacramento State. They lead 3-1.
That was a shot. We always talk about third base being the hot corner, but sometimes first base too, man, being in the corners. Got to have those reflexes. They got the ball in pretty quickly to keep it at just one run coming across.
And that's another thing about this, too. You talk about how first base can also be the hot corner. You only have, by my count, I believe you have 2 lefties in this lineup for Sacramento State, which means that, again, we talk about the velocity from Brady Montgomery. If a lot of pitches or a lot of swings are going to be late, that hot corner now all of a sudden it does become first base if you're Carter Graham.
Oh yeah, and Bajorquez, his leadoff hit to start off this game too was to the right side.
Well, that will do it for Braden Montgomery's time on the mound. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will tell you all about the new Stanford pitcher, the sophomore, Ty Huber. Ty Huber coming in for the Cardinal. And you can't close the book on Braden Montgomery just yet. All 3 base runners right now on the base pass for Sacramento State are in his name. Ty Huber on the year, a 1-0 record and 16 innings of work. The 3.38 ERA, 11 strikeouts as well for the sophomore from Cameron Park, California. Those 11 strikeouts, also one of the big things to note, though, 15 walks in those 16 innings as well, giving up 13 hits. 6 runs, all 6 have been earned.
You don't really have time to sort of get settled in either when bases are loaded with less than 2 outs in terms of feeling that control. So he's going to have to get comfortable quick.
Nothing says welcome into the game like going up against a 3-hole hitter in the lineup, but it's like that got a piece of Inchelli Samar. Again, the bases were loaded, so 1 run will come across. Well, that's one way to get an RBI if you're a 3-hole hitter. 4-1 now, Sacramento State. 2 runs in both the first 2 innings already. And now J.P. Smith will come up to the plate. Of course, we talked about this in the open. Stanford's the number 9 team in the country. So it's really hard to an extent, to be really nitpicky about certain things going on with the team or what they can be better with. But, of course, one thing, if you look at it, the pitching staff coming into today, Stanford was 5.26 ERA, which was 9th in the Pac-12. There's no question about it. They can definitely put up some runs, but they can definitely give up some as well. It's a mixed conversation to have because, of course, they've played against some really, really good competition, especially look at some of the out-of-conference teams they've gone up against. Of course, they were down at Texas Tech. Texas Tech was here just a few weeks ago. But still, again, we talked about it. The calling card usually for Stanford, good pitching and good fielding, and so far it's the pitching that hasn't been where you usually expect it to be for Stanford. As that hit a mile in the air to left. It's still carrying. Rios back at the wall, and that ball is gone. The grandest of them all for J.P. Smith. That ball hung up in the air as long as it possibly could. And the Hornets have broken this one open already here in the second inning.
That ball was hit a mile high out there. You saw Rios. He was there in time but didn't have the room to make that play. Got to give credit to Sac State. I mean, they're coming out guns hot here in the first couple innings.
8-1 for the Hornets as Jeffrey Hurd. Well, he started the run palooza for Sacramento State back in that first inning, had that 2 RBI double. In case you were wondering, the book on Brady Montgomery now closed. An inning and a third of work as that one is crushed by Hurd. Deep to right, Campbell back. He'll look up, and that ball is gone. The Hornets go back-to-back, 9-1.
Coming into this game, Sac State had 51 home runs on the year. 26 of them had been solo shots. Add another one to that list, but the grand slam before that was a turning point for them as well to take advantage of having runners on base. Now all of a sudden they're up by 8 this early in the game.
Well, if you look over the Sacramento State dugout, it's a party in my dugout right now. 9-1, Cesar Valero at the plate. First pitch in for strike one. And Jenna, of course, we talked about it before. If you're Stanford, you know this offense could put up some runs, but usually you don't think about that in an 8-run deficit. So that's fouled off 1 and 2.
When you said it, pitching is something that Stanford's been sort of working through this season. I had a chance to talk with Coach Esker earlier in the season, and that's what he said when I asked him, what's it going to take to get back to the World Series again? You've been back-to-back years. What's it going to take to three-peat, to go to Omaha? And he said it's really going to take some surprises pitching-wise, and I like to see that response right there from Huber.
Yeah, big-time strikeout from Huber. He gets his first out of this outing. As Carson Blacknick comes to the plate. He was the leadoff hitter in this inning against Braden Montgomery. He started off with a single, came around to score. A grounder over to second. And Drew Bowser will take care of it. There is out number 3, but a big-time inning for the Hornets. 7 runs on 5 hits as we go to the bottom of the second. Hornets up in front, 9-1. Well, if you're Stanford, there is some work to do offensively. The good news is you have a lot of time to do it. Just the bottom of the second. Cardinal trailing 9-1. Malcolm Moore will start things off, having a really good freshman campaign from Sacramento, California. In 3-13, 7 home runs, 32 driven in. Something tells me he'd like to put something on the board against his hometown school. And right now ahead in the count 2-0.
Really, it's just about chipping away, too. I mean, that 8-run deficit can feel pretty daunting right now, but you really still have to keep things one pitch at a time. Don't try to do too much. You can't score 8 runs with one swing of the bat. So just one thing at a time, one at-bat at a time.
Of course, like we've mentioned, this is definitely an offense that's more than capable of putting up big numbers in a hurry. And right now, Malcolm Moore in a 3-1 advantage. Moore, Bowser, and Rios, your 3 do it for the Cardinal in the bottom of the second. Swing and a miss. As Bird works it to a full count. Of course, that's another side of it, too. Usually you always talk about pitchers, being so happy and to have a big cushion, but Jackson Bird had been sitting down for quite some time. As that's fouled off by Moore.
Those are what I like to call champagne problems, right? Like my offense
Right.
is supporting me so much that I got a little bit long of a break. I have to make sure my arm is warm. But they do. You still have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in between.
Of course, you know how pitchers are very much into routines. So even the littlest, the smallest of things that can throw them off a little bit, they aren't too happy with it. But again, I don't think you're not going to be happy with a 7-run inning by your offense, as there's a swing and a miss as Moore was ahead on that off-speed pitch for strike 3.
And that's a good tone-setting plate appearance for Bird to have in this situation. I mean, your offense does what it did in the top half of the inning, scoring 7 runs. What are you going to do after that? I mean, if you let Stanford kind of crawl back right away, then all of a sudden they can chip away throughout the game. But if you try to make a statement and get some outs early, to put you in a good position.
You always talk about the shutdown inning, and this is already, we're in the 4th half inning of this game. It's already another shutdown opportunity. Both teams have had those opportunities, and it hasn't happened yet. So Jackson Bird looking to get one here, like you said. You have this big lead. Don't let Stanford in that offense, as dangerous as it can be, get any momentum going, as Bowser again swinging and missing as that back foot dropped out. Count 1 and 2.
Well, in a lot of ways, things are wiped clean, too, every half inning, right? You want to win every inning, and Sac State certainly put themselves in a position to do that here in the second. But it starts over every time you switch on the field and off.
Back-to-back strikeouts now for Bird, so give him strikeouts number 2 and 3 on the season. And Alberto Rios will now come to the plate. Alberto batting .347. Look, he just missed the chance to bring back that grand slam from J.P. Smith in the top half of the second inning. Alberto batting .347 this year. Takes outside and is ahead in the count 2-0. Just missing the corner. Good eye. Rios, another one of those Stanford players with at least 7 home runs. And when you look at it a year ago, this is how impressive Stanford was, both offensively but also pitching as well, as Rios earns the 4-pitch walk. So we talk about coming into today, Stanford had 50 home runs, 51 now after Tommy Troy had a solo home run in the first. Last year, they hit 118 home runs, including 23 in the postseason. They only allowed 36 all of last year. Of course, right now they're sitting at 38 after the 2 from Sacramento State. Saborn Campbell, first pitch. Over to short, strong throw to first by Aloy will do it for out number 3. One base runner for Stanford, but that is it. We go to the top of the 3rd. There's that shutdown inning we were talking about. Sacramento State's in front 9-1. Hitters 8 and 9 due up from the Hornets, and we go back to the top of the lineup here in the top of the 3rd inning. 9 runs on 7 hits for Sacramento State. 1 run on 2 hits for Stanford as Josh Rolling, first pitch swinging, and that's well hit to left center. Going back on it is Park and Rios, and Park can't make the grab. Rolling with the helmet off, flies into second. He'll stop there. And it's a leadoff double on the first pitch for Josh Rolling. So 2 doubles for him in back-to-back innings now.
That's good aggressiveness from him, too. Down towards the bottom of the lineup, you're in that 8 spot, and you're just attacking pitches. I think in the case of Park, he was there to make that play, kind of in that middle ground over there where there's a little bit of shade, little bit of sun in left center field, and you kind of have to fight those elements. But it ultimately falls the way of Sac State.
And you wonder how much the wind might be messing with him as well. Again, from where we sit, we're looking at the flags out over in center field behind the batter's eye. And for the most part, they're either blowing out or over towards left field. So who knows what's really happening to the ball, too, as well, once it gets up in the air that high.
Especially when it hangs the way it did there, too. There's just more opportunity, more time for that ball to move. The higher it is in the air and the longer it's in the air.
And for a second, too, you thought, like, again, we talked about the grand slam from J.P. Smith about how it didn't seem like it was hit as hard as it was, but it kept carrying. Mm-hmm. And that ball almost did the same, except going to a deeper part of the park. Meeting of the minds going on right now on the mound. In all 3 innings so far for Sacramento State, they've had the leadoff hitter reach base via a base hit, 2 singles and now a double. And Jacob Cortez, who flied out to Eddie Park his last time up, will come up to the plate. So as a hitter, Jenna, and not to say that Ty Huber doesn't throw hard per se, but again, not in the flamethrower that Braden Montgomery is. So now as a hitter, when you transition, do you see that ball coming in slower? Does that help you, or does it mess with you because, again, you're so sped up before, that's what you're used to, and now you got to slow things down once again?
It's an adjustment, no matter which way you look at it, but it is, generally speaking, easier, or at least to do it more quickly when you're going from faster to slower, because your timing is really the starting point of everything. It's your foundation as a hitter, and being on time means not being late, and it's easier to be late on the fast pitchers, but you're less likely to be late if they don't throw quite as hard the next time around.
Something to keep in mind, as again, we talked about it with Josh Rowland. That first pitch jumped all over it. Now 2-1 count to Jacob Cortez. As that slider tails low and away outside the zone to count 3-1.
Something the Sac State hitters are doing really well, too, is seeing the ball all the way in. You know, as a hitter, even your takes can be quality or not quality. And when they're taking pitches, they're watching that ball all the way into the catcher's glove. And that's what you want to see. That's what you have to do, really, to see the ball well. And they've got the production so far today to show it.
Count now full to Cortez. It's a Sacramento State team that was projected to finish 4th in the WAC this year. It's that payoff pitch, high and tight for ball 4. And they're expected to finish behind Grand Canyon, Sam Houston State, and California Baptist. And right now, Sacramento State sits 10th in the WAC. They're 6-9 inside of their conference. And of course, when you put the votes in together, of course, there are really no such things as ties for the most part when it comes to the standings, but they had the same amount of points as Abilene Christian and also UT Rio Grande Valley. Bojorquez takes on the first pitch. Back to the top of the lineup for the 3rd time in as many innings for the Hornets for ball 1.
And listen, that's why some of these preseason polls, they're definitely interesting, and they're educated guesses that you're making as a coach in those situations. But ultimately, it comes down to who's going to execute on that day. Because Stanford was picked to take the Pac-12, right? And whereas, okay, Sac State's picked to go 4th in the WAC, but here we are, Sac State up 9-1 on a midweek game here in Palo Alto. So it's really all about not necessarily who the quote-unquote best team is, but who's performing the best at that time.
Of course, Stanford right now sitting 2nd in the Pac-12 standings at 11-4. But no, you hit the nail on the head, Jenna. You even told me before there was a midweek game that you worked earlier this year, and it was somewhat of a similar story, if you will.
So you're blaming this on me?
I
Stanford
didn't say
fans,
that.
Jordan?
Well, here's the thing. I know to my right, the wonderful Julia Lee is sitting here, and she will look for anything possible to blame me for. So
you're deflecting.
I have to before she puts this all on me. I know she wants to.
Got it. But in all seriousness, it's true. You know, midweek games are interesting. You know, you can either take the momentum from the previous weekend if you had it, or try to course correct from the previous weekend. It can also set the tone for what you bring into the next weekend. But it can either be something that kind of lifts you up as a team or something that might deflate you a little bit depending on how you approach it. So far, Sac State, even having traveled here to Stanford, is taking advantage and using it as something to lift them up.
Yeah, they're looking to start this 9-game road trip on a good note as they are about to see a 3rd pitcher now for the Cardinal. We'll take a quick break and let you know about who is coming in now to replace Ty Huber right after this. Third Cardinal pitcher of the afternoon will be the freshman from Rockland, California, Torrin O'Haron, number 18 on the 18th of April. 6-footer who was an All-League first-team member back in 2022. So far on the year, this will be appearance number 7. 5 in the third innings of work, giving up 5 hits, 7 runs. All of those have been earned. 10 strikeouts, 6 walks. And coming in with a bases loaded situation, but they'll be loaded no more as that ball gets by Moore. We already talked about the spacious sunken diamond, easy 90 feet for the Hornets as Roland comes around to score. Everybody else moves up 90 feet as well. Runners on second and third, still nobody out, and it's a double-digit run total for the Hornets.
Well, and those are the tough ones. You know, we've seen a batter get hit to bring in a run. We've now seen the wild pitch to bring in a run. That's what you got to limit. You try to make them earn those runs in those situations. The grand slam, all right, you left the yard, right? But how do those runners get on base as well? So some of these have been freebies that Stanford's been allowing, but Sac State has been capitalizing.
And you see Aloy, he's looking to capitalize a lot more. Jumped all over that pitch, but hit it foul into the Hornet bullpen. And takes there for a 2-1 count. And talk about the power that Hiva Aloy has shown on the year. In 9 home runs, not only is that climbing up the ranks in terms of program history for freshmen, he came in leading the team this year in home runs. As he will earn a walk. Bases once again loaded. That's 3 straight walks issued now by Stanford pitchers. And coming back up now will be Martin Vincelli-Samar.
Well, with no outs, to your point, as the Stanford defense, you are thinking about trying to get the force and trying to turn 2 if possible. That's one silver lining when you do load the bases up in that situation with less than 2 outs. They're going to have to try to capitalize on it and use it as much as they can.
First pitch low and in, ball 1. Vincelli-Samar making his 3rd appearance to the plate. He has been walked and was hit by a pitch. He finds a room on the left side for a base hit. 1 run will score. Bajorquez coming home. That ball's cut off. 2 more runs come across for the Hornets on the 2-run single by Martin Vincelli-Samar, and it is now a 12-1 game for Sac State.
It's a nice hit too, right? It's just a hard low line drive, ground ball through that 5-6 hole, not trying to do too much, but you still bring in 2 runs in this situation. The hitting has also been timely for Sac State. They have been executing when there are runners on base.
And they have absolutely been piecing it together, if you will. J.P. Smith comes up. And that's lined the other way and down for a base hit. Rounding third and coming on home will be Aloy as the throw goes over to short. First pitch, another run comes across. 13-1 now for the Hornets.
At this point, if you're Stanford, I think it becomes a lot more mental than it does physical. You have to stop the bleeding. We all know that. It's 13-1 here. They have double-digit hits already on the day. You're on your 3rd pitcher. But it's really going to be mental at this point because you want to see how they respond offensively and you want to see how these pitchers work from at-bat to at-bat and how they respond after giving something up.
That's 15 innings now this year for Sacramento State where they've scored at least 4 or more runs this year. Continuing a trend that they had against UT Arlington, they also had a 6-run 8th inning, a 5-run 6th inning during that third game against UT Arlington. And so far this year, they've had 12 games where they've had those big innings. They're 9-3 and on their way potentially to a 10th win in one of those situations. There's Jeffrey Hurd. And his last time up, he had a shot that you probably heard back in Sacramento, a solo home run, part of a back-to-back effort in that second inning.
I see what you did there.
Well, I can't really do any like the beam stuff, so I figured I might as well just do something with the name, right?
See what you did there.
3-1 count now to Jeffrey Hurd.
Yeah, but it's got 3 RBIs on the day. Double, solo shot.
And that's hit well down the line, but tailing foul. Good approach to have in the 3-1 count, but now it's 3-2. As we have this game, we're right in the middle of games 2 and 3 of fellow Northern California teams, the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors. As that pitch is in the dirt for ball 4, and the bases are once again loaded. And even in that matchup, if you're in favor of the Bay Area team, it has not gone your favor so far. Sacramento Kings up 2-0. Games 3 and 4, of course, coming back to the Bay at Chase Center, San Francisco. Going to be a crazy atmosphere there. Valero takes the first pitch for a ball. As you would expect, these Hornets hitters are going to be very patient at the plate. Already in this inning, 4 walks have been issued by Stanford. There's a nice off-speed pitch that's in there. Froze Valero for strike 2.
And they should be. Now in this situation, Valero just looking to protect with the 2 strikes. But not a bad approach to just be a little bit selective. You know, you don't have to chase anything.
In the dirt, Moore made sure it stayed in front of him.
At the same time, I feel like the Hornets have done a nice job of attacking pitches if they're right over the heart of the plate early in the count. They've either done that early or they've taken counts really deep to see a lot of pitches.
No in between. Strike 3 called on the outside corner. Nice pitch for O'Haron. And a big timeout in this inning, too. There is out number 1. And now you can exhale if you are O'Haron on the mound. Base is still loaded, though, so you don't exhale for long as Carson Blacknick comes to the plate. 1 for 2 on the day. The single, and he came around to score. Also grounded out to second his last time up. Hornets already 5 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Stanford still looking for that first opportunity to hit with a runner in scoring position.
Only a couple hits so far on the day.
Exactly a couple. 1-1. Change up, got him out in front, 1-2. Well, if you're Torrin O'Haron, you have Blacknick a little off, as that one's popped a mile high into the air. Who's going to call for it on the infield? It will be Carter Graham. The infield fly was in effect regardless. And there is a big out number 2.
It's the second inning in a row where the Hornets have batted all the way around the order. To shift that momentum back a little bit, it's going to be tough for Stanford at this point, but if they can retire 3 in a row here, that might give them a little bit more momentum going into the offensive side of things.
That one well hit to center. Eddie Park ranges over, and there is out number 3. Well, good job for Torrin O'Haron. 3 straight outs to limit the damage to the 4 runs that came across for Sacramento State. Stanford with some work to do. They are trailing 13-1. New pitcher for Sacramento State to start this bottom of the 3rd inning. It'll be Xavier Richards, also a freshman from Reno, Nevada, product of Reno High School. He was working on 21 innings of work so far this year. Team with 31 hits, 18 runs, 16 of those earned, 18 strikeouts, 14 walks. And his last time out, pitched twice in that UT Arlington series. And went a total of an inning of work, gave up 4 hits and 3 runs. All 3 of those were given up on the 16th. So the first batter he faces here is Owen Cobb, and right now in a 2-2 count. Cobb fouls that one off, stay alive. We'll do Owen Cobb, and then we go to the top of the lineup for Stanford. They're just 4 grand slams away from tying this up. In on the hands to Owen Cobb, popped up over on the first base line, and that'll be caught by J.P. Smith for out number 1.
3 grand slams.
That's right.
Don't make it harder on them than it already is.
Once upon a time, I used to be able to do math in my head.
Yeah, I wonder if everyone can tell we were not, math majors in college. We went the media route.
They give you calculators when you do the media route, just by the way. That's it towards left center and down for Eddie Park. Well, Stanford now with 3 hits on the day, and Eddie Park has 2 of them, both singles.
And that one was quick. You know, his first at bat, we talked about how he went deep in the count, saw a lot of pitches, ultimately won the battle. Now he just attacks early on when he sees what he likes. So, second time through the order for Stanford should be interesting.
Now Carter Graham, that goes off the glove of Blatnick. So an easy 90 feet for Eddie Park. Takes a big rounding of second base, but he'll stay there. A runner in scoring position now for Stanford.
He thought about taking third on that as well.
And the way that ball was slowed down when it hit off the glove of Blatnick, he definitely had a possibility of taking it. 1-0. Fastball low in the dirt, 2-0.
When you think about the situation, too, you're down by so many. You have someone in scoring position already. You know, you don't like getting thrown out at third, if that's a possibility. That's the worst place to make an out.
You know, what's the rule? They usually say don't ever make the first or the last out of an inning at third base.
Yep.
Two, 1 count now to Carter Graham. And slow and in to count 3-1. And we're talking about this before. Carter Graham started the year off at 067 through the first 8 games of the year. Ever since then, he's been hitting at a 324 clip and hit that one hard, but Aloy was there to make the nice grab, ranging over to his right. And there's out number 2.
Pretty defensive play. Park did a nice job of getting back to second base, too. He read that really nicely to avoid the double play.
And now here comes the batter who is responsible for the run tally for the Cardinal. Tommy Troy with the solo home run back in that first inning.
The only thing that Bird really gave up in his first collegiate start, he went just a couple innings, but other than that, really was in control of the Stanford offense.
And you think about what that just does, too, for his confidence. And, again, not even just for midweek games. You think maybe there's a big-time series going on during WAC play down the stretch. They might have to bring him in during relief. And he can go and say, you know what, I did a pretty good job in a few innings against such a powerful offense.
Yep.
That he'll feel just fine doing whatever is asked of him to do out of the bullpen potentially if Reggie Christensen calls his name. Good cut from Tommy Troy, fouled it back.
And if they get to that postseason stage,
yes,
that's often when you would face a team like this. Actually, the most recent times that these two teams and programs have faced each other have been in that postseason tournament phase versus regular season. And now you'll have this under your belt.
Line drive by Troy to center, tailing away from the center fielder, rolling. It'll get down for a base hit. Of course, going on contact was Eddie Park at second. He comes around to score. 2 runs now driven in on the day for Tommy Troy. And there are 2 runs on the board for Stanford. It's 13-2.
And that's what Stanford's got to do. I mean, as a top 10 team, you have the ability to keep chipping away, whether they win this game at the end or not, if they were to make the most incredible comeback ever. Just the ability to respond well and put together some good innings after the couple of bad ones is still something important for them to take moving forward in the season.
Brady Montgomery grounded out to short his first time up. On a 1-1 count. Of course, remember, he started off as a starting pitcher, now moves to the DH role. Good job by Blatnick to keep that one in front. Counts 2-1.
And that was a nice job considering that Park got to second base earlier based on that pass ball. So putting in that extra effort to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Shot foul 2-2. Temperature starting to drop as the sun sets. Of course, Jen, I noticed you had to put the jacket on.
I did. I was trying to hold out.
Throw down to second. Tommy Troy is in there. So whether it's the aggression for Stanford on the base pass or the pass ball issued by Sacramento State, Stanford finding way to take extra bags here in this inning. For Tommy Troy, that is his 12th stolen base now in 13 attempts this year. A full count to the Stanford cleanup hitter. Outside ball 4.
It's a good AB in this situation.
And you talk about being able to piece things together. Again, up and down the Stanford lineup, there's that big swing ability from a lot of different players. Here's one of them here, Malcolm Moore. 0 for 1 so far today. Struck out swinging. Part of back-to-back strikeouts in that second inning. And ahead in the count here, ball 1-0. Drew Bowser awaits on deck. He'd be up next if Moore can reach. Fastball outside, 3-0. Of course, Malcolm Moore is not your traditional freshman. You talk about the talent that he has. But even with that, something tells me he was going to be taking on that pitch the whole way, and it's a good thing he did, as it was ball 4, so a 4-pitch walk, and now Stanford will have the bases loaded. You have Tommy Troy over on third. Braden Montgomery's at second. Malcolm Moore now at first, as we're going to have a mound visit here for Sac State. They do have some action in the bullpen. I don't think there's anything imminent, though, that's going to happen in terms of any changes.
Well, from a coaching perspective, if you want to be able to see how your pitchers can work out of situations, you have the luxury of still having an 11-run lead to allow that to play out. Now's the time to do that if that's something that you're trying to work on and trying to see from your staff.
Now, you bring up a great point. You talked about it from one side, right? For Stanford, it's about seeing how you can piece things together. Even if you don't make the comeback, which, of course, is a very good possibility. Stanford can do it with their abilities at the plate, but still seeing things you can work on from that standpoint. And like you said, also is the same thing for Sacramento State. You're in a jam right now. See if you can work out of it. There's a very tough hitter to get out in a jam situation, that being Drew Bowser at the plate. And first pitch couldn't hold up. Strike 1.
Whatever end you're on, you can always find a way to learn something or find a way to get better. And you, Jordan, know this as a football alum here at Stanford. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You never stay the same.
Oh, my goodness. I know exactly where you got that from. It's a sign that I was used to seeing pretty much every day on the practice fields, but
I was right next to the softball locker room
right.
when I played here. Also saw it every day.
Definitely one of Coach Hart's favorite things. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many times whenever we would have a post-practice meeting, and that's one of these, that sign is always right. Here's the 0-2. Ground ball to shorts. And Aloya will take the long throw to first for out number 3. Well, Stanford gets 1 run back. They had potential damage for more, but shut down here in the bottom of the third. To the fourth we go, 13-2, Sac State. 9, 1, and 2 hole hitters due up for Sacramento State to start the top of the 4th inning. And Stanford added a run, take one off the deficit in the bottom of the 3rd, now looking to hold fort, if you will, in the top of the 4th. Still Torrin O'Haron on the mound. It's Cortez 0 for 1 so far. Flied out to center in the 2nd, and then drew a walk and came around to score in the 3rd inning. 1-1, low, 2-1. High and tight for ball 3. Of course, whenever you have schools that are so close to each other, a lot of interconnecting networks, if you will. Of course, if you think about Stanford, we were just talking about the sign that's over at the practice field as Eddie Park just missed, coming up with a phenomenal play in center. A big diving effort. It just bounced out of the glove, so that'll be a leadoff single for Cortez.
Man, you gotta love the effort on that. He covered a lot of ground running
he
in. His feet were moving. He had the wheels on.
Back to the top of the lineup. That's now 4 innings for Sacramento State in terms of a leadoff hitter reaching the base hit. So to the top with Bajorquez as a single and 2 walks. Again, going back to that point, of course, the new head coach, Bradford Freeman, director of football, if you will, around these parts for Stanford, Troy Taylor, who comes by way of Sacramento State.
Yep.
They'll have their spring showcase next Saturday, part of Cardinal Palooza here on the farm. Jenna and I will be over at Boyd and Jill Smith Family Stadium doing some softball for the big series. I guess that's what we're going to call it.
That's between
Cal and Stanford. Exactly.
Yes.
A lot of sports action going on the farm next weekend.
Even if we don't know what to call that matchup between Cal and Stanford, we know any rivalry matchup like that is big.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's big.
1-2 gets through the legs of Moore. And Cortez will take second. It's very rare that you see catcher not able to get the mid on the ball at all. It seemed like that was kind of the case, a straight 5-hole shot, if you will, for Moore.
As a catcher, you want to really be that wall back there. You kind of sacrifice your body at times, drop to your knees. But sometimes when it's just off like that, it might mean a missed spot in that case. Those are tough.
Count now full to the leadoff hitter for Sacramento State. 18 multi-hit games a season ago. And he draws the walk.
The thing about walks is that you can't defend them.
Yes.
Right? Like we talked about Stanford relying on the defense. A lot of times saw the effort from Park in center field, even though that ball did ultimately drop to start this inning. You can't let your defense work if you're giving the freebies away. And they've done that several times today via the walk, via the hit by pitch. Something they've really got to tighten up, especially heading into more Pac-12 play.
And of course, you think about it, especially from the pitching standpoint, you know for the most part what you're going to get from your Friday night starter, talking about Quinn Matthews, who you talk about all the Stanford players who were all Pac-12 preseason members and also preseason All-Americans.
Yep.
But one of the questions is, after that, whether it's the other starters or from the bullpen, what you have there is a foul tip, but it's caught by Moore. And there's a strikeout for O'Haron, his second. of the evening. And now Martin Vincelli Samar will come to the plate. He was 1 for 1, had a 2 RBI single in the third. He's been hit by a pitch to bring home a run and has also walked to come around and score in the first. Pretty eventful day.
A little bit of everything.
Inside ball 1.
But, you know, every time he's come up to bat, he's ultimately ended up scoring so far in this game. So Stanford would like to break that cycle here in the fourth.
Fastball is outside. A senior from Quebec. A couple Canadians on this Sacramento State team. As O'Haron fools him there, it's 2-1. Another good pitch, perfectly located by the freshman, Torin O'Haron. Well, there's one part of that, though, Jenny. You talk about the pitching situation for Stanford. That means there's a lot of room for opportunity, especially if you're a young player. You can show what you're capable of. And right now, Torin O'Haron with another strikeout, back-to-back case for him, this one of the looking variety. And now J.P. Smith comes up with 2 down and 2 on.
It's his third strikeout. He, as we talked about at the end of the top of the third as well, had 3 in a row that he was able to retire from this Hornets offense. He's done 2 in a row now. Can he do a third, right? Can you stack those little wins along the way?
Check swing, didn't matter anyway. It was in there for strike 1. You can almost even sense and feel it now, right? He's getting in a little bit of a groove. You see some of these continuous good pitches back-to-back, stacking them together.
Seen the hitters a little bit off balance too, guessing a little bit, hesitating. Did not see that the first couple times through the lineup, hence the score that we see now.
Absolutely. Like you meant, a lot of check swings, a lot of being out in front of some pitches. The 1-1. That is in the dirt, ball 2. Stanford is just starting a long home stand. We talked about how Sacramento State's going to be on the road for a while. Stanford will be here for quite some time as they will welcome in the Washington Huskies this weekend. And they'll have a midweek game against the Golden Bears from Cal next Tuesday before another big Pac-12 series that weekend with UCLA coming on into town. Always a fun series to watch whenever Stanford and UCLA get together.
A couple of the top teams picked in the coaches' preseason poll. Those head-to-heads are fun.
Runners go on the payoff as that is lined the other way. Campbell ranges towards the line, and he dropped it. 1 run's going to come around to score. Also coming around is going to be Bajorka as he scores as he was running on the pitch. An error issue to Saborn Campbell is going to cost Stanford 2 runs.
We talked about it earlier, how Stanford typically plays traditional baseball where they rely on strong pitching and strong defense. The pitching had been struggling, starting to get in a bit more of a groove, and now the defense makes that mistake. So that's tough when no part of the game, none of the big parts between pitching, defense, a little bit going on offense, but hasn't been explosive, when nothing has come together. So trying to get out of this inning right now with Hurd is going to be big.
And Jeffrey Hurd has put a couple of really good swings on the ball already today. A double and a home run. Has a walk to go with it. Look for big contact on that swing that came up empty.
And that would have been the first inning where they didn't give up any runs in this game, too. So it would have been a nice turning point for Stanford. But they got to focus.
That one bounces away from Moore and moving up another 90 feet will be J.P. Smith. So he ends up at third base. Another run potentially for the Hornets now 90 feet away. A 1-1 count to Jeffrey Hurd. Takes that pitch in for strike two.
Really, the heart of this order for the Hornets has done a lot of damage. I mean, 11 of the RBIs have come from 3, 4, 5 out of the 15 runs.
Of course, if you're a head coach, makes yourself feel pretty good, right? It's exactly how you want things to happen.
Looks like you know how to put together a lineup.
There you go, exactly.
Yeah.
We talked about this is a Hornets offense that's definitely capable of putting up big innings as that one's lined. And a nice catch. Saborn Campbell looked like he almost overran it, but reaches back to make the grab for out number 3. The 2 more runs come across on 1 hit, 1 error as well for the Hornets. We go to the bottom of the 4th inning, 15-2 in favor of Sacramento State. So far, every single time that Stanford has scored has been twice this evening. Sacramento State's had an answer. So we'll once again see if Stanford can answer the answer, and that's one way to get things going. The first pitch of the inning, Alberto Rios, is nicked on the pitch. He will take first base.
Any way you can at this point.
Absolutely, and of course now you look at Saborn Campbell coming up to the plate. You know, on his mind, he's trying to think of making up for that 2-run error that he had that last half inning. A sophomore from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Of course, has a brother that plays at Boston College. His brother John. Right now on a 1-1 count. The pitch on the outside corner by Xavier Richards.
This is why it's important to be able to just mentally shake it off too. You know, you're on the offensive side right now. You have to just kind of flush everything that happened in the top half of the inning.
A swing and a miss. That'll be strike 3. There's a first out of the bottom of the 4th as Owen Cobb will come to the plate. First time up in the 3rd inning. He was the leadoff hitter in that 3rd. Popped up. Over to the first baseman. And that last inning in the 3rd, Stanford was able to piece some things together. They left some runners on base, but again, that ability to manufacture runs. See if they can do that again here in the 4th as that pitch misses for ball 2.
Patience is going to be key here.
Two and one. Everyone continuing to bundle up a bit here at Sunken Diamonds. That's up the middle. It bounces off the top of the second base bag and through. A base hit for Owen Cobb. Rios moves up to second. 2 on now for Stanford with 1 down. Hit it right where it came from.
That's what you're trying to do. You know, when you talk about fundamental hitting and even what you're doing in batting practice, it's not a home run derby, really, if you're treating it properly. What it is you're trying to hit hard, ground balls right back up the middle, hard line drives up the middle. It translates well to the game to do that. The home runs will come when they come.
Hit the other way by Eddie Park. There's a lot of room over there, and it's going to find the fair territory. 1 run's going to come around to score. Cobb is going to come around as well. Here comes the relay. Not in time. 2 RBI double for Eddie Park. Good piece of hitting going the other way. Brings home 2. And Stanford puts their first cricket number up on the board in an inning.
Showing a little bit of life are these Cardinals bats right now. I mean, the Card really just needs to keep chipping away and doing this, but you have to be able to be in that mental state. I mean, it's hard when you're down by that many runs to stay focused and stay in it, but these Cardinal bats aren't done yet.
That's RBI 32 and 33 for Eddie Park on the year. Carter Graham first pitch swinging, fouls it off. Like we said, it's not the issue for Stanford of scoring runs. Now it's a matter of, can you give the offense all the opportunities possible in terms of hold the Hornets to 15 if you can. That's a long run over in foul territory for Crenshaw. Couldn't get there. 0-2. Again, when you look at it, Stanford scores 1 run in the bottom of the 1st. Sacramento State comes around and scores 7 in the top of the 2nd. Stanford scored 1 in the 3rd, and then the Hornets answered with 2 in the 4th.
If they bring another run across, this is the first time that they will have, quote-unquote, won the inning against Sacramento State in this game.
Mile high pop-up. Who wants it on the infield? Calling for it is Bajorquez. And there's out number 2.
I like that Richards was ready. He was ready to field his position there. But, yes, as the third baseman, you definitely have to take control in that situation, which Bajorquez did to make that play.
Of course, if you've ever heard any broadcast that Jenna Becerra has done, whether it's on a baseball diamond or a softball diamond, you know one thing is for sure, she loves pitchers, one that can hit and also pitchers that defend their position.
So when we talked about Brady Montgomery, for example, getting the start on the mound for Stanford today, that's my dream come true, is to have, I called him a two-way player, right, and he's up for some of those awards, but really a three-dimensional player because he can play defense as well.
Of course, again, this weekend it'll be fun. We'll see a couple of two-way players. Elena Vaughter the other weekend hitting a home run. Of course, we know what Sona Halajian can do, both in the circle and also at the plate for Cal is Tommy Troy. Looked like that one got him on the elbow. Looks like fortunately he does wear that elbow guard, but that still hurts at least a little bit. He'll be over at first. I'm going to check him out. And the way Tommy reacted to that, I wasn't sure if it actually missed that guard or not.
It looked like it might have, which is a bummer because that's the whole reason you're wearing it, right?
Exactly.
Try to prevent that. But, you know, the other option is what are you going to do? Go up in catcher's gear right in the batter's box? You can't do it all. Just got to wear it sometimes.
Of course, you're talking about the pitch, not the equipment.
Yeah.
And with that, looks like that might do it for Xavier Richards. And it will. So another Hornets pitcher coming on. That will be their third. Stanford already on their third as well. And we'll tell you about the new Hornets pitcher in a second. Stanford with 2 on and a 2 out here in the bottom of the fourth. New pitcher for the Hornets, the junior, the transfer from Boise State, Wesley Harper. Local kid from San Jose, California, out of Bellarmine College Prep, the Fighting Kevin Danas. So far on the year, 10 2/3 innings of work with 10 hits. 4 runs, all of those have been earned with 11 strikeouts, 7 walks. His last outing back on the 11th against UC Davis. Went 2 2/3. Gave it just 1 hit and 1 run. Also 3 strikeouts and 2 walks. Comes into a situation with Eddie Park at second, Tommy Troy at first. 2 down here in the bottom of the 4th inning, where Stanford's already brought home 2. Braden Montgomery fouls that off to even the count 1-1.
Would you like a fun fact about all of our pitchers today?
I would love a fun fact.
Okay, each team has had 3 pitchers so far in this game. All of their numbers are also multiples of 3. So Bird's 21, Richards 30, Harper 33 for Sac State.
And speaking of multiples of 3, there's a hit very well to the outfield by number 6. That's going to bring home 1. Now rounding third, coming around to score as well, Tommy Troy, who scores all the way from first. Good piece of hitting from Braden Montgomery. It's going to be a 2 RBI double. And Stanford has now brought home 4 here in the bottom of the 4th, and the lead is now back to single digits.
Number 6, also multiple of 3 for the record. But also, if you look at the Stanford side, just to finish the thought, Montgomery getting the start on the mound as well, number 6, Huber 36, and O'Haron 18, all multiples of 3.
And in case you're wondering, even though I know I messed my math up earlier in terms of how many Grand Slams Stanford would need, I did know that all the multiples were 3.
I guess Montgomery said 2 will work, though. 2 bags, 2 RBIs. That'll work.
Well, look at it this way. The deficit is now 9. One team has 15. The other has 6. Yes, this is what happens when you have 2 Stanford graduates on a broadcast. You start talking about math halfway through.
Even if you're not math majors, as we made that clear earlier. Stat enthusiasts, though, I think we can say.
That's a good way to put it. Maybe somewhere in my brain there's a little bit of that left of whatever I learned in AP Calculus in high school. Maybe, I don't know.
Also, the score, 15-6, multiples of 3.
And a 3-0 count.
Just saying.
And if you're Stanford, you just keep trying to chip away, make things interesting here. The 4-pitch walk for Malcolm Moore. And Drew Bowser will round things out for Stanford in their lineup in this inning.
I think this is important because now Stanford has officially batted around their lineup in this inning, something that we've seen Sac State do more than once in this game.
Yep.
But for Stanford to show a little bit of life and a little bit of a response and do that in return is important.
One thing I've noticed a lot, too, from Drew Bowser this year and the times that I've seen him or called games, and I'm not sure, I can't remember as much of how I saw it, how many times I saw it last year. That back foot definitely slides out in that swing sometimes. As you see right there, swings and misses to even to count 1-1. Was that a monster year last year? You bet 293, 18 home runs, 50 driven in. That one off the end of the bat towards short. One throw to be made, and it's a strong throw to first by Aloy. But the Cardinal bring home 4 on 3 hits in the bottom of the 4th. Let's see if they can get a shutdown inning and keep chipping away as they trail 15-6. Pitcher number 4 coming in for the Cardinal. And in case you were wondering, yes, it is another multiple of 3. Number 45, Max Meyer, coming on for Stanford. So far this year, 10 2/3 innings of work. He's given up 18 hits, 14 runs. 12 of those have been earned, 12 strikeouts, and 5 walks. Last time out was against Texas Tech back on the 10th. That was a 6-4 win for Stanford. He went a 2 2/3 of shutout baseball. Gave up only 1 hit and had 2 strikeouts in that outing against the number 21 ranked Red Raiders of Texas Tech. That hit total for Stanford starting to come together now. They have 7, and there's the 12th hit of the evening for Sacramento State as Garrett Crenshaw on the first pitch that he sees in this game lines it down the line for a double. He came in as a defensive replacement a couple of innings ago. And once again, a leadoff base hit for Sacramento State.
These Hornet bats have just been relentless today. And that's something, as a coaching staff, you got to be thrilled about. Like, they just have not stopped since the first pitch of this ball game.
Yeah, the Stingers are up and out today for Sacramento State.
Nice.
Here's Blatnick. Chopper off home play. Good job by Meyer to look the runner back to second before going to first. And there's out number 1.
Again, that 5th infielder, Meyer helping himself out. And that's having to get your feet set a couple of times in that situation, too, because he fielded the ground ball, but he had to look the runner back and then set his feet to go to first base. It's a lot of movement for a pitcher to deal with.
Yeah, nothing too big for the senior from Belmont, Massachusetts. Now going up against Josh Rowling, has had a good day at the plate. 2 doubles, come around to score twice. First pitch, low and in for ball 1. Closing in on 2 hours of play so far. We started this game just after 6:05 as we approach 8 o'clock here on the West Coast. Fastball misses over in the left-handed batter's box. 3-0 count now to Rolling. Taking all the way in for strike 1. Talk about how great the Sacramento State lineup has been today. You have 3 hitters in the lineup that have multiple hits. Only 1 hitter didn't record a hit, and that was Valero before he was replaced by Crenshaw. You saw have the double. So of the 10 players that have come to the plate for the Hornets today, 9 of them have hits.
When you look at Smith specifically, to that grand slam, plus an RBI in the 3rd, plus the error in right field that he hit to bring in around 2 more runs. I mean, 7 runs, basically half of the production that Sac State has been from him.
And tip your cap to Rolling, staying alive. Going to work another payoff pitch. Back-to-back fouls. When you look at that, too, outside of the error, but the 2 run-producing hits that he's had in terms of J.P. Smith, early in the count, 1-1 count for the grand slam. First pitch, single for when he drove home the other RBI back in that third inning. And now Rolling puts a charge into one towards left. Going back on it still is Rios at the warning track and will make the grab. Crenshaw was halfway over to third, so he'll have to go back to second. And that ball just continued to carry. And that's one of those balls where, again, now that it's twilight time here at Sunken Diamond, maybe if it was during the day that might have carried out, but it'll stay in the yard.
And the elements have changed a little bit. We talked about some of the shadowing on the field earlier in the ball game with the sunlight still on, but that's kind of gone away. The lights are now on here at Sunken Diamond. So now you're thinking about the glare. It's just a little bit different when you transition from that daytime to nighttime.
Of course, one thing that's so helpful for especially the outfielders here at Sunken Diamond, they have those lights that actually point up. Usually when you think of ballparks, you have your standard stadium lighting where everything looks down on the field, but here at Stanford, especially in the outfield, they have those solo LED panels that show up that can help you locate a ball in the outfield a little bit better when it's in the air.
And ironically in the outfield too, we talked about all the ground they have to cover, but sometimes the hardest balls to read are actually the ones hit sort of right at you or right above your head because it's harder to see and gauge the depth and the angle that it's coming at. So anything helps.
Swing and a miss. Strike three on the off-speed pitch to Cortez. Well, there's a shutdown inning for you if you're Stanford. Nothing comes across. One left on after the leadoff double. Go to the bottom of the fifth, which means it's going to be my favorite time at Sunken Diamond as we have the junior announcer of the game on the PA. Stanford trailing 15-6. In case you were wondering and all the surprises were out there, yes, we have a new pitcher here in the bottom of the fifth inning. Connor Horrigan from nearby San Mateo, California, the redshirt sophomore. Comes in, transferred in from Skyline College. And he pitched in 14 games a year ago for the Trojans. So far this year, no record, but has pitched in 8 2/3 innings, 10 hits, 8 runs, 5 of those have been earned, 8 strikeouts, and 3 walks. Going up against Rios, Campbell, and Cobb due up for Stanford, and the first pitch from Horrigan is going to hit Rios. So the same exact way we started off the bottom of the fourth, we start the bottom of the fifth.
Hey, if it worked once, try it again. And in case everyone's wondering, Horrigan does bring the multiple of 3 to an end. He is number 29, so that's it. for that fun adventure we were on.
In case you're also wondering, no, I did not try to do that math in my head. I knew automatically it was not a multiple of 3. Saborn Campbell looking for his first hit of the evening, 0 for 2. Good eye. Working it to a 2-0 count. Campbell right now sitting at 080, looking for that first hit since he had a 2-hit outing against Oklahoma back on April 2nd. And of course, if you're Stanford, doesn't really matter how you get on as long as you do. They'll take it any kind of way right now, and he's ahead of a 3-0 count. Taking all the way, but it's in for strike 1. Owen Cobb on deck. Not your usual 9-hole hitter. And he will have 2 on. A hit batter and now a walk. And here comes Owen Cobb. The reason why I say he's not your usual 9-hole hitter, you usually don't look up and see someone hitting 344 in that 9 spot. That's one thing both of these teams had the luxury of. Owen Cobb came in batting 342, and then Jacob Cortez came in batting 345.
And both have scored, too. I mean, Cortez only once, which I say only because of how many runs that Sac State has scored in this game, but of the 6 that Stanford's put up, Cobb was able to do that once back in the 4th.
Singled and came around to score on the Eddie Park double. A 1 count to Owen Cobb. Jen and I are up here laughing as we talked about it. It's the junior announcer of the game inning, and so we have the youngster Logan up here. One of the things he just said is that this is a long game. Change up, swing and miss for Cobb for strike 2.
He's crushing it also.
No, absolutely.
With Rios, Cobb, he's been doing well.
And a new pitcher to introduce. I think the thing that's most impressive, wearing an Expos hat. It's about that blast from the past. The old Montreal Expos. Then moved to Washington, D.C. to be the Nationals. Still crazy how 1 year can really change a outlook for a franchise. Think back again to that 94 year where they were going to finish first in the NL East, as that's going to get down for a base hit. Good read off the bat, and coming around to score will be Rios. Again, it was a good deke attempt by rolling in center, but to no avail. Another run comes across for Stanford. It's 15-7.
Slowly but surely, Stanford has been chipping away, like we said, exactly what they needed to do. The only inning they haven't scored in is that 2nd inning. The big 4 spot in the 4th inning as well, but just getting at least single ones up one at a time has been helpful too.
And they're in a good position to do even more damage here in the 5th. 1 run already across, 2 still on, nobody out, and you're at the top of the lineup.
Well, if you think about it too, 2 really bad innings, but if you take away the 2nd inning,
yes,
for example, this game's all of a sudden a 1-run game because Sac State doesn't get those 7 runs. It's 8-7 in that case, so you can't do that, right? That's not how it works. But if you think about it just in terms of the cushion that Sac State is going to need, we said they actually need these runs because Stanford can come back and make some noise offensively.
Another way to look at it too, while it's not that 7 spot, you look back at that 4th inning. Remember, 2 of those 2 runs came off an error,
right? Which
would have been out number 3. Just missing off the outside. 2-1, and another note with that too. Of course, that would make it a 13-7 game, but Also, you talk about the momentum where after that bottom of the third where Stanford was able to get one run as there's a fly out to Rolling. Who knows? Now you get out of that inning with no runs, the momentum looks a lot different and it feels different to where, maybe that 4 turns to a 5 or 6 for Stanford, or you don't know what could happen from that point. As Logan so eloquently put it here on the loudspeaker at Sunken Diamond, Carter Graham comes to the plate looking for his first hit of the evening. Grounded to a double play, lined out to short. So popped up on the infield. Good stop by Blatnick. So that was sweeping away from him. It's one of those pitches there where even if you swing at it, not much you can really do with it. Counts even 1-1. Situations like this is where Carter Graham was so dangerous a year ago. Check swing, it's in there anyway, 1-2. Let's go back to last year. He hit safely in 49 of his last 59 games. Talk about being locked in at the plate. So he takes that one away, count even 2-2.
Yeah, he saw that in really well, too. I talked about how the Sac State hitters are doing that nicely, seeing the ball all the way into the catcher's glove. Graham just did that on that pitch that was off the plate.
Hit hard down the third base line, but foul. That'll be fielded by one of the Hornets over there in the bullpen. Count still stays 2-2. Here's the pitch. Swung on and crushed to left. Going back is Hurd. He'll turn and watch it fly. 3-run home run for Carter Graham. And you look up at that scoreboard, Stanford inches that much closer. It's a 5-run game now, 15-10. Back-to-back 4-run innings for Stanford so far.
Just one shy of a Graham slam here in the 5th inning. This is what we're talking about with Stanford. You look at the way that the tables have turned. Stanford adding runs as we go further and further into this ball game. All of a sudden, double digits. They are threatening for this comeback.
Again, we talked about it. You're not used to saying this in terms of hold a team to 15. But again, with how dangerous this offense can be, that literally is the case right now for Stanford and the pitching staff. If you hold the Hornets at that 15 spot, there is a lot of firepower, enough firepower in that offense. This could get really interesting, and it's seeming like it'll do so. Interesting enough that we're going to have another new pitcher for Sacramento State here after this break. Another pitcher coming in now for the Hornets. Pitcher number 5. It's number 11, the freshman from Milton, Georgia, Benji Tucker. Coming out of Mount Pisgah Christian School. He's making his second appearance as that one's hit to left, and a sliding grab nicely done over in left field by Hurd. He took his steps back at first like you're supposed to as an outfielder and had to make a long run in to make the grab.
He's playing pretty deep too. You know, after that home run that Graham just hit, shaded a little bit towards the warning track, so he did have to cover a ton of ground.
Again, going back to Benji Tucker, his second appearance of his young collegiate career. Went 2 innings back on the 11th against UC Davis and gave up only 1 hit with 1 walk and 1 strikeout in those 2 innings. And Jen, I know we were talking about this when we took that quick break, but Logan has been putting in work this inning.
Yes, he has. I think MVP of the ballgame so far.
He might just have to be. And 4 runs have come across for Stanford. He's had to do 2 pitching changes.
His home run celebration was unmatched.
Literally put his hands up in the air. If you paid attention closely, the way he celebrated it with his hand swaying from left to right, all those little inflatables at the used car places, I think they got a little jealous of him.
Yep.
Here's the 0-2. Off speed, misses outside.
We can still see the wind as well in center, both flags. It is still blowing out towards left. So that's just going to be something that the defense on both sides has to deal with this whole night.
1-2, swung on and miss for strike 3. So Benji Tucker comes in and retires Braden Montgomery. 4 runs come across for the Cardinal on 2 hits. Of course, a big one being a 3-run homer by Carter Graham. And we go to the 6th. Stanford keeps chipping away. Phenomenal job, Logan. 15-10 going to the 6th inning. Max Meyer continues on his outing in inning number 2. We have reached the top of the 6th inning. 15 runs for the visiting Hornets, 10 runs for the home team, the Stanford Cardinal. As Jorge Bajorquez swings at the first pitch, fouls it off. One thing is for sure, you you must love it as a broadcaster, and I'm telling you that we do. Whenever you talk about something and it works out that way during the game, we talk about how both of these teams have the ability to put runs up on the board. And I'd say 25 runs through 5 innings total. I think that goes to show it.
And just the efficiency of it, too. 15 runs for Sac State on 12 hits, 10 runs for Stanford on just 9 hits. So just really capitalizing with the timely hitting when runners are on base.
Of course, there's the other side of that where Stanford came in today with a 5.26 ERA. And that was ninth in the Pac-12, as we mentioned. And then on the other side, if you look at the WAC for Sacramento State, 6.27 ERA. That's right there around the middle of the pack in the WAC. What a play on both ends. Owen Cobb, the nice pick, and also a good pick over at first by Carter Graham.
Cobb didn't let that eat him up over at shortstop, just finished the play. Didn't give up on it. And then, yes, you love to see that over at first base as well. It's one of my favorite things to watch because really having that skilled athletic first baseman makes all the difference in the world.
You think of all the plays that a first baseman could potentially be a part of throughout a game. And so beneficial whenever they can help give you an extra out here or there. Aloy, big swing on the first pitch, came up empty. 1 for 3 so far. Chopper on the third base side, foul. We have one defensive change for you in this inning for Stanford. Over at second, the sophomore Trevor Haskins came in, so he replaces Drew Bowser over at second base for the Cardinal. Batting that sixth spot, which actually will be due up second in the bottom of the sixth. 0-2 in the dirt.
To your point, too, Jordan, around the ERA piece, we've also talked about the free passes that have been given up.
Yeah.
As a pitcher, your ERA is affected by walks. If you walk someone on base and then they end up scoring on a hit or something like that, that is an earned run. So that does affect that as well. So if you reduce the walks, in some ways that also helps you reduce the ERA.
Like you said, those are the tough ones because there really isn't a defense for a walk. Another grounder to Owen Cobb. Throw to first, and Graham couldn't pick that one. A short hop throw from Owen Cobb. So Aloy will reach on the throwing error from Cobb. That's the second error of the game for Stanford. And now Martin Vincelli Samar will come to the plate. It's 11 errors now on the year for Owen Cobb, 36 in total for Stanford. We're talking about things that are hard to defend against. Yes, walks are the case, but errors can be very tough to play defense against as well.
Well, right, because you're asking your pitchers to produce ground balls, fly balls for your defense to make those plays. You're asking pitchers to do that, and then they do that, and then they're not getting that support, right? So it's a two-way street.
Two-0 count to the three-hole hitter. 1 for 2. It's also been walked and hit by a pitch, as that one was in on his hands for ball 3. Three-0 counts. You don't want any extra people on base with Smith coming up, and the game that he's had so far that Jenna alluded to a couple of innings ago, there's strike 1. And 7 runs have come across by way of the bat of J.P. Smith. including 5 RBI. Big swing and a miss from Vincelli Samard. Count is full. Good job here by Max Meyer to work his way back in this count. Big pitch here coming up for Stanford. And chop foul will do it again. Think about what's at stake here in this inning. Stanford, right now at this point, with 8 unanswered runs. Sacramento State trying to take some of that momentum back. Of course, if you're the Cardinal, you want to keep it right where it is and let that offense continue to go to work. Swing and a miss, strike 3. A big-time pitch for Max Meyer to come back and give Vincelli Samar.
To your point, Jordan, too, coming back from being so far behind in the count, that's that grittiness that you have to have as a pitcher. You know, we talk about like good at bats when people are fighting off pitches, getting foul balls, but as a pitcher, the further you get into an at bat or into a count with a hitter, you also have to have that grittiness to keep fighting.
And like I said, you already have one runner on. You don't need anybody else on with J.P. Smith coming up.
Especially not someone in scoring position.
Exactly.
Right? And that changed that.
First pitch swinging. A weak grounder. Max Meyer will take care of that and throw to first for out number 3. Well, back-to-back innings now where the Hornets have not scored. And Stanford holds the deficit at 5. Let's see if they can continue to chip away at it here in the bottom of the 6th. To the bottom of the 6th we go. We do know of one defensive change for you. In center field now for Sacramento State, Griffin Harrison, the freshman, takes over for Rolling. And, of course, if there's anything else, we will let you know as soon as we do. Meanwhile, at the plate, it'll be a 5-6-7 for the Cardinals, starting off with Malcolm Moore. First pitch swinging to center, tailing over towards left. And Hurd will make the catch for out number 1.
And you said it earlier too, Jordan, that there have been 8 runs that are unanswered so far that Stanford has scored and Sac State has not come back with anything. So if you're Stanford, you want to keep stacking innings like that as much as possible and keep the momentum going, because when Stanford finally had that shutdown inning, that's when things started to go their way. So you don't want the seesaw to tip back the other way.
That's been one of the themes in this game. You look at those big unanswered runs for each team in terms of, you go back to the second and the third. There were 11 unanswered runs for Sacramento State, and now Stanford on their 8-0 run right now, so to speak, as well. Trevor Haskins getting his first at bat and puts a charge and one to left. Going back is Hurd. That ball got out of here in a hurry. What a swing by Trevor Haskins. Hit number 2, home run number 1 for the sophomore. And now it's a 4-run game for Stanford.
That was an absolute rope, too. You know, we've seen some towers hit over the fence today, some long balls, ones that hung in the air for a while, but that one got out in a hurry, straight into the trees.
That make that 9 unanswered runs for Stanford. And Rios looks at the first pitch outside. Swing and a miss for Rios, 1-1. Alberto Rios on the day. He's been to the plate 3 times. Still looking for that first actual at-bat. He's walked and been hit by a pitch twice. Line, that's going to get down and maybe get to the wall for Rios. Over towards right center, he's going to go for 2. The throw in going to be cut off. It's a double for Alberto Rios. He has a 1-for-1 game.
Nice opposite field shot by Rios. You said it, Jordan. He hadn't had an actual at-bat because he was walked, got hit by a pitch a couple times, but he'd also been seeing some pitches, so his timing was good, and he just did a nice job of throwing the hands and punching it to the other side.
So with 1 down, Cole Hinkleman will come off the bench to grab a bat. In case you're wondering, again, more of the defensive changes for Sacramento State. Number 6, Josh Rowland, who was in center. He's still in the game, but now over at second base. So if those are the only changes, and I believe that will be the case, Rowland still bats 8th, and then instead of Cortez batting 9th, that is where Harrison would be hitting the new center fielder for the Hornets. Chopper up the middle. And a play over to first by Tucker. And there's out number 2. No advance there from Rios. Owen Cobb comes up, 2 down, 1 on second. 1 already across in the inning for Stanford. How about that big sweeping breaking ball?
Good idea in this situation, too. I mean, these hitters are timing him pretty well at this point, so why not take a little off something to try to get ahead in the count?
Went for it again, and he gets the check swing. Greg Charles said Owen Cobb went around. So now 0-2 count. Again, try to go outside. Cobb not offering. Guess if you were wondering for Trevor Haskins, that is home run number 2 in his collegiate career. Had 1 last year against USC. 1-2. And almost a bit of a defensive swing. It goes right back to the mound, and there's out number 3. So after the home run and the double, a good job by Tucker to come back and get the next 2 outs. But another run goes on the board for Stanford. They get ever so much closer. 15-11 now, going to the 7th. Middle of the lineup coming up for the Hornets, starting off with Jeffrey Hurd in the top of the 7th as the scorecard scribble-scrabble continues. We have more defensive changes for Stanford. Alberto Rio stays in the game, but he moves over to right field, and Cole Hinkleman, who came in that last half inning, is over in the left. So now the outfield for the Cardinal from left to right, Hinkleman, Park, and Rios. As there's a late strike one called to Jeffrey Hurd by Bradley Hungerford. Haven't been too many complaints from the strike zone from Bradley tonight.
A lot of hits as well.
A lot of hits.
So that helps.
23 of them to be exact between both teams.
And the walks have been pretty clear. Like, It's not like we've had pitches that are, oh, wow, that looked really close. Haven't even heard it from the fans, really, in this game.
And that is one thing about a Sunken Diamond crowd. Usually they will let you know if they think there's a pitch that was close and is a ball or a strike.
Yep.
It was so much fun here during postseason play last year. Just thinking about the one game, Jenna, that we went to, or Stanford tied it up late with the back-to-back home runs. I believe it was Eddie Park that ended up winning it. The walk-off hit late in extras.
That was Super Regionals, I believe,
I
last
think so.
year. And we said afterwards, that was one of the best baseball games we've ever been to.
Absolutely.
Pro, college, doesn't matter. It had it all. The emotion, everything.
Two-two. Fouled off once again. It's been a very productive day. I know we talked about how great the day J.P. Smith has had, but Jeffrey Hurd had a good productive day as well. 2 RBI double and a solo home run. And see some of his family members over by the Sacramento State dugout as that one is skied to center. Eddie Park ranges to his right for out number 1.
An important out number 1 because, to your point, he's seen the ball well. He's responsible for 3 RBIs, 3 of the runs in this game so far. And even in the plate appearances where he didn't maybe get a hit, he got a walk back in the 3rd, and then he lined out in his last at-bat too. So still quality contact. So to be able to get him out early in this inning was a good step for Stanford.
Well, even to that point too, that's now back-to-back innings where Stanford has retired that leadoff hitter. The first 5 innings, all the Hornet leadoff hitters have reached by a base hit. Garrett Crenshaw came into the game as a replacement and did not take much time to be introduced to the game as the first pitch he saw back in the 5th, in line for a double. Batting .229 on the year, 2 home runs. He's driven in 10. And now ahead of the 2-0 count. Jumped all over that one, foul.
Just taking a look at the outfield too here. They're playing a little bit more straight up. You know, earlier in the game we saw them shaded a little bit towards right. So a little bit towards left center versus left, a little bit towards right center versus center field earlier today. But now we see the corner outfielders playing a little bit more straight up than before.
Over to second, where Haskins was playing in the shallow grass for out number 2. And of course, again, a big part of that, we talked about it. You had that heat from Braden Montgomery, where of course if you're in the outfield, you're going to expect the opposing hitters to be a little late, so you play the other way. Now, again, the velocity is a little lower, so you can play it a little bit more straight up.
Depends on the pitching, depends on the fielders too, because as mentioned at the beginning, you said it, the outfield has changed a little bit in terms of landscape. Rios moving from left to right and a new left fielder, right? So in that case, those are the little things that sometimes you make an adjustment for.
We'll have another pitcher coming in for Stanford. That'll be their 5th on the evening. We'll tell you all about it in a second. Good job by Max Meyer holding things where they are in that Sacramento State offense. Brant Panther will be pitcher number 5 for the Cardinal. Junior from Sewanee, Georgia. This was a Pac-12 academic honor roll member a year ago. One of the more frequent visitors out of the pen for Stanford this year, already with 21 in the 3rd innings of work. So, 19 hits, 12 runs, 11 of those have been earned. "21 strikeouts and 6 walks.
And that indicates a little bit more control as well, too. We talked about the struggle of that early on with the pitching staff in this game.
That went off the glove of Panther. Takes his time to throw to first for out to number 3. That's 3 innings in a row now. Stanford hasn't allowed a run. It's stretch time at Sunken. Cardinal trail 15-11. Stop if you've heard this before. Another new pitcher on the mound for Sacramento State. It'll be the junior from Rockland, California, Kevin Haynes. Had the most appearances last year for Sacramento State, 30 appearances on the year. It is well on his way to another big appearance number this year as he's gone 21 and 2/3 innings of work so far, and he is greeted by a grounder off the foot. That was from Eddie Park, and Eddie's going to be safe. Now we're going to take a second as after that one pitch, Haynes, you can see he's visibly limping. That was a hard hit ball up the middle by Park off the foot. Let's see if he's okay.
Yeah, those are tough because you got the adrenaline running when you're trying to make the play in the moment. But then afterwards, it kind of sinks in like, all right, how am I feeling?
Yeah, obviously that's an unfortunate scenario. You just come into the game, that's your first pitch, and take one off the foot. And it looks like he's going to try to shake it off and still at least throw some warm-up pitches here. But again, if the gait of Haynes shows me anything, I don't know if he'll be able to stay in or not.
It looked like it was his right foot that was giving him
that
trouble
push foot.
Too. Yep. So
it looks like he's going to be okay.
Yep. Sometimes it just stings as well. I mean, it's like getting hit as a batter,
Absolutely.
right? You know, it's like you just need a minute sometimes.
All he needed was that one pitch and said, I'm good to go. Well, that's a good sign. Happy to see that Kevin Haynes is okay. Leadoff hitter on for Stanford now with nobody out. For those of you who are interested, again, I know we talked about the Sacramento and Bay Area ties, especially this week. It's been announced by the NBA that Draymond Green, the forward for the Warriors, will be suspended for Game 3. Of course, there's that whole altercation that he had with Domantas Sabonis in Game 2. Draymond was ejected from that game as Carter Graham ejects that ball out the stadium. Way out of the ballpark. Two-run homer for Carter Graham, and I don't think it's landed yet.
Wow. I think fair to say that's the furthest ball that we've seen hit tonight.
Absolutely.
Easily. And he bat flipped on that one too, but I mean, I'm not a huge bat flip person, but you knew. Every single person in this stadium knew off the bat.
If you hit a ball that far, I think you almost have to bat flip in that sense.
I think earlier I referred to Stanford coming back as what would be the greatest comeback ever, potentially. I mean, that's obviously unofficial. But it is 15-13, Jordan, at this point.
If Jenna Becerra says it's the greatest comeback ever, that is the official ruling that we need. As Tommy Troy puts a charge into one. That one's back to the wall, just a couple of feet short.
Couple of hip turns by Hurd out there in left. Wouldn't be the first time that we would have seen back-to-back jacks here tonight.
The Hornets had it back in the second inning. Stanford now has 3 round trippers of their own in this game. 2 of those coming from Carter Graham. As Braden Montgomery coming to the plate. Second pitch fouls it off.
That would have been the second of the night, too, for Troy. Would have bookended some at-bats there if that would have went there. But he flew out to left back in the 5th inning as well. So he's been putting a charge in these pitches.
5 straight innings now the run scored for Stanford. They've also scored in 6 of the 7 innings so far. Again, what's been impressive, at least, it's hard to say impressive whenever a pitching staff gives up 15 runs, but that's 3 straight innings though for where they've held Sacramento State right where they are. And again, now all of a sudden you look up, it's a 2-run game.
Yeah, that's actually, if you're going to be taking positives from this game, it is the zeros that are on the board right now that Stanford should take with them.
Braden Montgomery earns the walk, so 1 on now with 1 down. And it'll be Malcolm Moore coming to the plate. Malcolm still looking for his first hit today. Has reached twice with 2 walks. Was also struck out and flied out the other way.
Can Malcolm bring more across for Stanford? I had to do it.
I love it. 1-0 count. As Malcolm's in the middle of a big at bat right now.
Good one.
Chopper, first base side. This might be 2. There's 1 at second. Back to first. A double play. Well turned by the Hornets. But for Stanford, 2 more runs come across on 2 hits. Of course, the big one from Carter Graham, the 2-run homer. As we go to the top of the 8th now, getting interesting. 15-13. Well, if your lineup card is as messy as mine is now, here's some rejoice for you. No changes defensively as we go to the top of the 8th. As Josh Rolling, first pitch swinging, skies it to center. Eddie Park will make the grab for out number 1. 1 pitch, 1 out. And the now catcher, Jacob Cortez, comes to the plate. Remember, he started off playing at second base. But now Josh Rolling, who started off at center, is now over there at second. A lot of action and musical chairs defensively for both of these teams.
And you expect that in a midweek as well because you're trying things out. This is the time to do that outside of conference.
Chopper up the middle. Haskins showed the range but couldn't field it cleanly. And that's going to be a hit. Again, a long way for Trevor Haskins to go to try to field that and just couldn't come up with it clean. It was going to be a tough throw to make anyway.
Exactly. I think the angle at which he was coming at that, too, makes that throw really, really difficult. You're coming in and you're actually going away from first base in that situation. Your momentum taking you that way. It's tough.
1 on, 1 down. Back to the top of the lineup. for the 6th time. It's Jorge Bajorquez. Behind in the count 0-2. He is 1 for 2 today. Single to start the game off, also grounded out to short in the 6th, and has 3 walks in between that. Goes the other way with it. Rios will make the grab for out number 2.
Hey, you said the 6th time, right, that he had actually stepped in the box, but only 3 at-bats now, and that's pretty crazy when you think about it.
And of course, that's one thing you talked about, though, right? In terms of the ERA and how walks play a part of that, they come around to score. You look at it on both sides of the coin. Stanford has drawn a walk 6 times. Sacramento State's drawn one 7. Lined hard, what a play over at third by Tommy Troy. There's that hot corner for you. The leaping grab by Tommy Troy will end the top of the 8th. And nothing comes across for Sacramento State as we go to the bottom of the 8th. Stanford down by 2. Stanford with 6 outs to work with to get at least 2 more runs. We're hoping for 3. And Trevor Haskins will start things off. Haskins, Rios, and Hinkleman due up for Stanford. And for Trevor Haskins, he has 1 swing on the evening, and it was a line drive solo home run over to left back in the 6th inning. Good cut there, fouls it back.
And even though there's obviously been a ton of offense in this game with 13 hits apiece, a lot of runs, 28 total in this game, it's now a 2-0 ball game, really. Like, if you're thinking about it to play the rest of this game in terms of what it's going to take to win with your approach, get them on, get them over, get them in is a good approach to take in that type of ball game.
There's something I don't think I've seen before. Such a big swing from Haskins that his elbow guard came off.
He's trying to get a 2 home run.
Join the Carter Graham Club.
Yeah.
It's actually 4 home runs for Stanford so far today as it's chop foul still alive. And 1 apiece from Tommy Troy and Trevor Haskins at the plate, then 2 from Carter Graham. We've seen them with different varieties too, right? The line drive from Haskins. The no-doubter that clears all the trees from Carter Graham. The in-between from Tommy Troy.
Yeah, Graham responsible for 5 of the 13 runs for Stanford.
Off speed, inside 2-2. And one thing that's been impressive for Stanford, you look at where the runs have come from. You talked about for Sacramento State how the middle of that lineup has done such a great job producing the runs. A lot of the runs for Stanford come from the bottom part of the lineup. Strong throw across by Bajorquez for out number 1. And by my count, believe at least 5 runs of the 13 for Stanford so far have come from that bottom half of the lineup.
In terms of scoring?
In terms of scoring,
yep,
yeah.
Yep, that's right, which means the top of the order has been really efficient in
Yeah.
terms of bringing them in. But that means they're getting on base, though, right, which is the point. The bottom of the order is getting on base for the top of the order. That is what you hope for.
First pitch to Alberto Rios is low. Last time he was up, he doubled back in the 6th. Was left stranded there at second. And did a good job going the other way with it. And there's the first set of groans from the Stanford crowd here on that pitch for a strike.
Not till the bottom of the 8th, though. That's not,
You'll take
not
it.
too bad. Yeah.
Chopper, this one's going to be tricky. Is it going to roll foul? Yes, it will. Good read by Bajorquez over at third, as I don't think he had a chance of getting Rios at first.
No, he's playing even with, if not a little bit behind third base, too, at that point. I mean, that is a lot of ground you have to cover in the infield to throw on the run. Smart move.
Make the count 1-2. As Rios makes the slow saunter back to the batter's box. Takes low and away, 2-2.
It's a good take. Easy to get a little bit anxious in those situations.
We've just reached the 3-hour mark of this game. High chopper over on the left side. Bajorquez will load up to show off the arm. Alberto Rios almost beat it out. The double clutch by Bajorquez over at third, but just enough arm strength to get Rios.
That's why every little movement matters, too. You know, I've made that extremely close at first base. We call football a game of inches, as you know, Jordan.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
You call it that, too, here in the baseball, softball world.
And that's the other side of the coin, too, as well as a hitter. That's why you never take anything for granted. You never know. In on the hands by Hinkleman. It gets by Bajorquez. Deep in the hole. Strong throw by Aloy. What a play as he was ranging over towards his rights. A trio of ground balls on the infield will retire Stanford in the 8th. Head to the 9th, 15-13. Well, on the mound to start this game, Stanford had a lot of heat on coming in from a lefty with Braden Montgomery, and it looks like they will go into the ninth. Also, with a lot of heat coming from a lefty, Ryan Bruno coming in for the Cardinal. Another one of those preseason All-American and All-Pac-12 members. So far this year, 14 and a third innings of work, 12 hits, 13 runs. All of those have been earned. 24 strikeouts, but walks have been a bit of an issue, 21 of those. And again, he can definitely light up a radar gun when given the opportunity to do so, as he's going to try to get through the middle of this lineup. 3, 4, 5. Heart of the lineup, do it for the Hornets. They try to put on some more insurance runs before Stanford will come back up in the bottom of the ninth inning.
You could see and hear that velocity, too, with Bruno. Just the pop of the glove. One of the most favorite sounds, I think, in baseball or softball. Pop of the glove, ding of the bat.
Still no better feeling than when you get the sweet spot on the bat. 2-0.
Ooh.
That one hit Vincelli Samar, I believe, on the foot. It seems to be okay as he jogs over to first. Been a painful day for Martin Vincelli Samar. This is the second time he's been hit by a pitch. And with that, you're going to have a pinch runner as Ryan Christensen will be coming in now as the pinch runner for Vincelli Samar. Number 8 coming in. So, of course, we need to have a couple more changes on our lineup card before this is over. Of course, Ryan, the son of the head coach, Reggie Christensen, is in. He's had a phenomenal run in his now in his 12th year. Sacramento State, 9 straight 30-win seasons, which is the only Division I program in the state of California to do so over that span. The WAC Coach of the Year honors as well. Trying to guide his program to an upset win on the road against the number 9 team in the country. And here's been a big reason for that offensive production, J.P. Smith, but he swings and misses. Nasty pitch by Ryan Bruno to get the first out of the inning.
Big one. I mean, the person that is responsible for 7 of the runs, you're able to send back to the dugout and get an out for your team.
1 on and 1 down. Jeffrey Hurd to the plate, 2 for 4. And both of his hits have gone for extra bases, a double and a homer. He's also walked as well today. It looks at the first pitch in for strike 1. And Jenna, one thing of note, we were talking about this in between innings, that in 9:13 now, we just started after 6:05. Even with all the offense that we've had today, think about the pace of this game, the fact that it's been just over 3 hours. Of course, everyone talks about the pitch clock and how that's been into play this year. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, actually a lot more efficient. What felt like was going to be a really long game has, I think, because of Sac State not having any runs come across for 4 straight innings to this point, has actually sped up a little bit. And then you said it earlier, too, the 8th inning, the first inning where there were no runs that came across in this entire ball game.
And you had the 6th inning where there was one run that came across, and that was scored by Stanford. The first time you look up at that scoreboard over in right center, and you can see 2 zeros up on top of each other. The 3-1 count now to Jeffrey Hurd. Here's the pitch, outside corner, called strike 2. Jeffrey Hurd thought he had a free pass. Of course, if you're a home plate umpire, that's something you never like to see. It'll be interesting if, of course, it's a full count. You got to swing if it's close anyway, but you might want to expand that range even a little bit more now if you're Jeffrey Hurd here. Payoff the other way. Fielded at third. It was a double clutch by Tommy Troy, and they'll only be able to get the one out at second.
I think he was waiting for coverage over at second base, too. Or else, timing-wise, they would have had enough time to make that double play. But smart to actually look up and pay attention, too, to what's happening versus just trying to get the throw off, having that awareness.
Yeah, that's a good call because, like you mentioned, as soon as Tommy Troy made the play, 'cause usually whenever someone loses it in the glove, you'll see them look back down and get a feel for it, but his eyes were at second the whole way through. First pitch to Garrett Crenshaw misses outside. And here's the fun part, though, in terms of adjustments if you're a hitter. Again, we talked about how fast and how hard Brady Montgomery throws. You've seen a little bit less velocity throughout this game once Montgomery moved to that DH spot in the lineup, and now you got to speed up right back again with Ryan Bruno on the mound. One. Low and away, 2-1. The fun things about standing 60 feet 6 inches away from the pitching mound. 2-1. And on the hands and foul back. Getting later into the night now. Usually if you're at Sunken Diamond, you see those foul balls go into the stands. You see all the kids from all over in pursuit, but of course people have class and school tomorrow. Not really many of the younger kids out and about.
It's dropped down into the 40s now as well.
I was almost afraid to look because I didn't want to look and then actually feel like it might be in the 40s. But now that you say it, it feels like it's in the 40s. 2-2. High and tight. And even as the wind has gusted a little bit for the majority of the game, as it's been dead now, we haven't really felt it. So that's obviously making it feel at least a little bit warmer.
Protection of the press box.
Payoff. Grounder up the middle. Haskins to first. And there's out number 3. Well, nothing comes across. Again, tip your cap to the Stanford pitching staff. The last 5 innings, nothing has come across for Sacramento State. And now it's up to the bats to get at least 2 more. We'll see if they do it in the bottom of the 9th. Last chance for the Cardinal. And they have the hitters coming up that they'd want to, as it's going to be Cobb, Park, and Graham due up for Stanford. They're going to go up against Jack Zalaski, the senior from Elk Grove, California. Had 11 saves a year ago, which was second in terms of the school's single-season record, also third in the WAC. Coming into this outing, 7 saves already for him, and 20 innings of work. He's given up 14 hits, 10 runs. All of those were earned. 29 strikeouts and 8 walks, the 4.5 ERA. And all starts off with Owen Cobb, who's been a tough out all season long. It's been the case today, 2 for 4. The pair of singles, one drove home a run. And the first pitch is in for strike one. Off-speed pitch hit the other way. It's a long run and just out of the reach of Rolling, who came all the way from second base.
Another life for Cobb. This is when that number 9 spot turns into the leadoff hitter here. Try to turn something over. Park can also, we know he can hit because we've seen him do it today, get a couple of RBIs, but he can also set the table really nicely for the rest of the lineup too.
You talk about the batting average at 345, but at least coming into today, it's at 347 now. But also that on-base percentage was coming in at 393. So finding a way to do it, to get it done in that 9 spot is Cortez. Good effort there, trying to steal a strike, bringing it back over the plate, but Bradley Hungerford not falling for it.
I respect any catcher working for their pitcher.
Oh, yeah. 1-2. Chopper to second. Going to be a tough play. Oh, what a pick by Rolling. That short hop. Had a decision to make there if you wanted to sit on it or be aggressive with it, and made a fine play for out number 1.
And you think about the fact that he hasn't even been playing in the infield this entire game necessarily. He started out in center field, came into the infield. That's a tough play to make. Not only the charge and reading that off the pick on the bounce, but also making that throw over to first base when your momentum's taking you in a different direction.
Yeah, that's a do-or-die decision, if you will, at second base, and he absolutely did. Phenomenal play. As Eddie Park now comes up. Curveball in on the outside corner for strike 1. And a great day at the plate for Eddie Park. 4 hits for him, 3 singles and a double that brought home 2 runs. He's also come around to score 3 times as well. But now behind in the count 0-2.
So interesting because this has really felt like 2 different games, 2 completely different games. The first half was dominated by Sacramento State. The second half has really been led by Stanford. And here in the 9th, it's going to decide which way it's going to end up at the end. And this is why baseball's fun for these types of moments in the end too. But I mean, it's a weird feeling when you're Stanford and you feel like you've had the momentum for a long time now, but you're actually still trying to come from behind.
And, of course, if Eddie Park reaches, you have someone on deck who is very capable of tying things up. And Carter Graham. To 0-2, what a beautiful pitch off the plate on the outside. Got Park to chase. And Stanford now down to their final out.
I think we're getting a taste of why Zalaski was named preseason All-WAC, and he's even on the watch list for the Stopper of the Year award, which is given to the top relief pitcher at the D1 level in NCAA baseball. So he's doing a good job of doing his job at this point.
How great of an award is that? Just to be named Stopper of the Year.
It's very to the point.
Absolutely. Big swing from Carter Graham, fouls it off towards the first base side and out of play. One of the many fans dressed up as a green seat will make that grab. Oh, 1 in there for strike 2. 0-2 count now to Carter Graham.
Doing a good job of jumping ahead.
Pitch swing and a miss. He pulled the string on him for strike 3. Oh, talk about impressive for Jack Zalaski to get save number 8 on the year as he gets back-to-back strikeouts to end things. And Sacramento State comes in on the midweek game. They start their 9-game road trip with a big win over Stanford, 15-13.
I mean, what an upset to have in the middle of your week, and what momentum that they'll be able to take into conference play this coming weekend. Stanford, on the other hand, obviously some things to work on in terms of the mound and just their pitching staff, but they can certainly take some smaller victories, moral victories when it comes to the offensive side of things, having some fight in this ball game. So wanting to clean it up a little bit on the mound as well as tighten it up defensively going into this weekend.
When you talk about offense, of course, that's the big theme of this game. Again, you look at Sacramento State, 15 runs on 13 hits. I think what is even as impressive for that, they had 5 hits with runners in scoring position. Look at some of the big performances for them. J.P. Smith was 2 for 6, had 5 driven in. Of course, a grand slam. And also with that as well, a good game from Jeffrey Hurd right behind him. He was 2 for 5 with 3 driven in as well. And pitching-wise, again, you gotta say it one more time. Jack Zalaski coming in, 9-1-2, big hitters for Stanford, who've had great games, and he takes them down with no issue.
Got to tip your cap, I think, to Sacramento State. They really capitalized on some of the mistakes that Stanford made. Again, Stanford, the offense as well. I mean, they had basically the same amount of hits in the end of the things as Sacramento State. So they just got to take the positive with them and then let go of the stuff that they didn't really have go their way today.
And offensively for Stanford, Eddie Park, a big game, 4 for 6. He drove in 2 runs, also scored 3 of his own. Carter Graham, 2 for 6, the 2 home runs. He brought home 5. And also a multi-hit game for Owen Cobb and Tommy Troy as well, who also left the yard as well. And, of course, when you look back at it, it comes down to a 2-run game. And, of course, Stanford could have ended 1 inning with no runs coming across for Sacramento State, but there was that 2-run error that happened in right, which ends up being the difference. Well, coming up for the Cardinal, the Washington Huskies are coming into town for a Pac-12 matchup. Meanwhile, the Sacramento State Hornets, they stay on the road as they will start a series at Abilene Christian. They're going to go up to Seattle U next up. Well, that'll do it here for us tonight. Thanks again for tuning in. Alongside Jenna Becerra and our wonderful crew here at GoStanford.com, I'm Jordan Watkins. Have a great night. And again, your final score here, Sacramento State 15, Stanford 13. Have a good night.